Welcome to this month's TechCast. This month we are going to be looking at the Advanced Shape Editor. The Advanced Shape Editor is the routine that you use to shape and edit your cabinets to fit your specific needs. The Advanced Shape Editor is only available if you are using the Solid Ultimate product or the Solid Ultimate for Closets product. There's going to be 3 segments of today's training movie. In the first segment, I'm going to show a couple of simple examples just to get everyone started. I realize that some of you may be brand new or relatively new to the product and you're having a hard time just simply getting started. So I'm going to get you up and running with just a couple of quick examples. In the second segment, I'm going to explain the options of the Advanced Shape Editor. And in the third segment, I'm going to give you a few more practical examples using some of the advanced options that I describe. In the time allotted, there's really no way that I can go through every single option and show you everything about the Shape Editor today. My goal is to teach this session from a practical standpoint to help you with things that you use in your everyday design work. So let's get started. I'm going to open a job, and first sample I'm going to show you. I'm going to place a base cabinet. Let's say, for example, this time that I need a 12 by 12 cutout on the back of this cabinet. That could be because they've run the plumbing or the heating and air conditioning ducts up the side of a wall, and I need to allow space for that in this base cabinet. Now, you can edit the cabinet from the room level as we are now simply by right-clicking and going to Edit Shape. This is the Advanced Shape Editor. I prefer to take it into the assembly level. That way I'll have the ability to look at more sides of it. I can look at 3D, I can look at face view, plan view, or if I want to split the windows, I can be editing in one view and looking at it from a different view all at the same time. Where you edit this is entirely up to you. I'm going to click on Edit Shape. You're going to notice that these are the CAD options or the CAD tools that you are used to seeing with CAD. This means that instead of working with the entire object at once, we are working with individual lines or edges. As I click on a line or an edge, you're going to see these purple or reddish color squares. These are constraints. This means that this line where you see my mouse arrow running up and down is constrained or connected to this line right here, so that this joint stays connected, and as one moves, the other will move appropriately. We'll talk more about constraints a little bit later. Let's start by editing the back and getting that 12-inch shape like I need, or that 12-inch gap. First thing I want to make sure that you do is go down to the bottom right and turn on your snap to points. When you turn on your snap to points, you'll notice that little bitty dots show up at each intersection, and they even show up in the middle of the lines. This makes it very easy for you to snap to these points so that you are very precise in your shaping. You don't have to use the snap to points, but I can tell you from experience that they are extremely helpful, and you are better served by keeping them turned on. The first thing I want to do is I simply want to get my 12 by 12. So there are many ways to do this. I'm going to simply place a couple of lines and then delete a couple of other lines. So I click on the line option and I move it along this line. Again, this is happening simply because I have the snap to points turned on. So you'll see on the left, my starting X is 30 at the end of the cabinet. So this back line is running left to right. Now if I need to move this 12 inches, so I'm going to hit my tab key, and the starting X needs to be 18. Hopefully 30 minus 12 is still 18. Now I'm going to left click with my mouse to set that line. Now I'm going to move down, and I'm going to tab over to the length, type in 12, and I click the enter button. Now at this point I'm finished with that particular line. Now I could just as easily have used a chain line so that I would continue with another line, but in this case I simply come here, I click using the snap points, having them turned on, I click at the end of this line and I start another line, and I go, and because the snap points are on, you can see that my length over on the left automatically snaps to 12. So I left click and I place that line. So at this point I have it outlined as I need it. But let me show you what you should always do. You always want to check your shape to make sure that Solid will accept it. If I click on the check button, it says shape not found. Why is that? That's because we have an enclosure within an enclosure. Solid is looking for a single outline all the way around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Trim Delete. I'm going to left click on this segment, and if you'll notice, because we had a point there, a joining point, it only took the line up to this joining point. So now I'm going to left click and trim delete this one as well, so that it only deletes down to there. Now let's click the check button, and you can see that it turns green. This means we have a properly enclosed form or shape that Solid will accept. So now we're ready to save it. So I click the return button and I save the shape, and there we have it. Now at this point obviously we're going to have to resection it. We can do that a couple of ways. We can go to the section tab and we can click on each one, and we can assign it to be a different back or end or whatever we need. But let's go back to the plan view and click on edit shape again. I want to show you the control that you have using the advanced shape editor. If I left click this line, I have an end and it's automatic, the side type. That's what I need. On this one I need it to be a back. On this one I want to change this to be a back also. And this one I'm going to change, that one is a back already, so that's what I need. This one should still be an end, and this should still be my face. And now if I save the shape and go into 3D and look, and there we have it. And let me color this in fill mode so that you can see what it's done. It's shaped it according to the construction method the best it can. Now you may have to make a few manual changes simply because the construction method that you're using does not have specific questions for for a shape of this nature. But that's why you have the ability to go in and change by hand anything you need to. Although this looks very good right here. We have the stretchers, the top stretchers, and we have the nailers, and this is looking pretty good. At this point I would go in and go to the face, add pair door, add drawers to it, whatever I needed, and I could place this cabinet up against the area that they have sheetrocked out to cover up the plumbing vents or the heating air conditioning vents. So that's the first example. Now let's do another example. So I'm going to go back out to the room level, and I no longer need that cabinet, so let me delete it. I'm going to add another wall, and I'm going to put it at an unusual, little bit of an unusual angle here. Now I'm placing a base cabinet into the corner. What I am assuming with this job is that this is in a bathroom area, that this is an interior wall that's coming out in the bathroom or a separator wall. What I want to happen is that I want this cabinet to fill in this space right here. So in this case, I'm simply going to stay here at the room level in order to shape this cabinet. So I right click and I edit shape. Now again, I'm going to make sure that my snap points are turned on, and you can see when I click the button down at the lower right how the small dots showed up in the corners in the middle. This time what I want to do is, because we have these lines constrained, which means one is going to follow the other, I'm going to highlight the front line and I'm simply going to move it straight across until I snap to the wall. If you'll notice, what happened is that not only did this line stretch, but this line followed as well. Now I may not be exactly on the wall. Yep, I'm just a little bit off. So let me move it back, and there we go. So at this point I'm ready to save this shape. Now I can take it into the editor, and you can see that I have a vanity set up. Now again, I may need to change the sectioning. I have a face, an end, a back, and I'm going to change this to back also because it's sitting up against a wall. There we go. And now again, I can section this however I need it. If I click on the face again, let's split this vertically, and on the right we'll leave that a door, and on the left is probably where the sink will go, so we'll put a false front there, and underneath we'll just leave this as a door. So this is a corner vanity, and if you go back out to your room level and look at 3D, and let me render this for you, you can see that this vanity filled in perfectly to this interior wall. So that's a way that you can shape from the room level if there is a need for that as well. Okay, the next segment is we're going to go into the editor and we're going to look at the options that are available. I'm going to place an upper cabinet there, and let's go into the editor. First thing I want you to look at is that you can edit the shape from the different orthographic views. I can edit the shape from the front of the cabinet, or I can go to the top of the cabinet looking down and edit it, or I can edit it from the end. I'm just going to click Edit Shape here so that we go into the editor. The first thing I want you to notice is that there are actually two layers to the Advanced Shape Editor, which are a little bit different from what you're used to. First is we have the shape layer. This is where the actual shaping takes place. We also have the construction layer. On the construction layer, this is just so you can make notes or make measurements and make lines, anything that's going to help you shape your cabinet once you have everything laid out. So I'm going to say, for example, that I need to let's say I need to clip this end. So I'm going to draw a CAD line, and I'm pretending like I've already measured everything and I know exactly where it needs to go. Okay, at this point nothing has happened to the cabinet. I simply made a CAD line across there showing where I need to shape this cabinet. Now I go back to the shape layer and I can zoom in and I can draw a line starting here and follow this line down to there. Now at this point I need to trim off the outside lines that I don't need, and let me zoom in a little, make sure that they are connected okay. Yeah, see, I'm a tiny bit off that line, but that's because of my snap tolerance is a little bit high. I need to lower snap tolerance, and it'll go right to that line. This line right here, I can tell it's not connected, so I select it and move it back right here. Okay, at this point I should have a properly enclosed object, so I click the check button and everything is green and it's fine. I can save the shape, and if you'll notice, this CAD line had no effect on the overall shape. That was simply an image or a template that's been put on top of the cabinet to help me in my design. So I save it and I'll save the new shape, and it's been clipped. So remember, whenever you're in the editor, by default you'll come to the shape layer. If you don't need to use the construction layer, don't worry about it. But if you do need it, it's there for your use. Okay, at this point, let's continue on with looking at all the different options. I think I want to go back to the room level just to have a little more room to play around and show you these things. I'll put another object out there. And here I'm going to right click and edit shape. The select option is you are selecting a single line or a single edge. This is pretty straightforward, and if you'll notice, each time you select it, it tells you everything about that edge, all of its properties over here on the sidebar. Next, if you click on select all, that obviously selects everything about that object, and you'll see the overall size of the object displayed on the left sidebar instead of the individual lines. As you can see, this is called group because we are looking at everything. The measuring tool, straightforward, just simply measure from one distance to another. That is 30 inches, as you can see on the left. The delete tool, you have to select something in order to delete it. As you can see, I could now delete this line if I needed to. Okay, let's next look at the transform options. The transform options are only available to objects that have no constraints. Okay, let me just draw let me use chain line, and I'm going to draw an object something like this just to give you a quick example. Now, transformed will not work if you have constraints. Whoops, let me simply select all of these and now remove the constraints. There we go. Now I should be able to select all, and transform is available. I can flip it. You see it just flips top to bottom. Or mirror. I hope you saw that movement. It swapped it from side to side. Trim break. Okay. Let me illustrate this by putting a line. I'm going to put a line right through here. Trim break is going to put a break point in between the end of the line and the nearest object. So like if I click on trim break and I click this segment, you can see it put a break right here between the end of the line and the next object, which is right here. Did so for here as well, for this entire line, so that now if I come in either trim delete or trim keep, it will go from segment to segment. So that's how you can break up a line to ensure that you're not deleting or keeping the entire thing. You can just do it a little segment at a time. Join, we have two options, either a fillet or a chamfer. Let me put out again a chain to line. I have a 90-degree intersection is what I'm interested in. If I join by fillet, I click the first line that is joined, and if you'll notice over on the left hand side, I have a radius of 5 and let me click the next line, and you can see that we radiused in 5 inches. Same thing's going to happen if you want a chamfer joint or intersection. If I join by chamfer, I click the first one. Over on the left it says 10. That may be a little bit big, but we click here and there we go, and that's an easy clip. So fillet's going to radius and chamfer is going to clip it for you. Offset just creates an offset copy of an object or a line. So if I click offset, click here, bring this out, I have made a copy of this object that I clicked on. The crop is going to crop the area. It actually works backwards. If I say outside, it's going to keep everything that's on the outside. So if I do like this for this area and click, you can see it took away everything on the inside and all the outside area was kept. If I then click for inside and come over here and crop this area, everything, the inside remained and everything else went away. So it's a little bit opposite from what you would think. Lines I've used already, just a simple straight line. Chain line is just line after line after line. Line box, simple line. You can make a box any shape that you want. Arcs, you can art by radius. You simply click again once you've established a radius, and that's draw it to just whatever angle that you want. If you notice at the top left, the end angle, we could go from 90 to 180, whatever you want, right there. Arc by 3-point arc. I could arc here, establish my second arc, and then get my third arc, and that would be a 3-point arc right there. Okay, let me clean this up a little bit. And let's talk about the constraints. Okay, let's look at the dimension constraints. The first one we're going to look at is distance. That simply means if I want the distance between two lines to always be the same, I can apply a constraint. For example, I've selected the distance constraint, and you can see at the bottom left it says select your first CAD object, which is going to be this line. And now I'm going to select the next one, which is going to be this line. Now it's asking me what the value of that constraint needs to be, or in this case the distance. I can leave it at 12, and that's a hard-coded number, or I can do some type of parameter, such as I set a parameter someplace else. It could be one of the parameters from the cabinet, such as the dx value, the dy value, or something that I have created myself. In this example, I'm simply going to leave it at 12, and as you can see, this constraint has been put here, so that this line, if I select this line now and try to pull it out, as you can see, it will always keep the distance between these two. It moved this line in the back. It made it follow the first line so that this constraint could be honored. Okay, so I'm going to look at the next one. Ortho distance. That is very much the same, although it's you're looking at the XY position. Let me think of an example. Okay, if I do I can do an example this way for you. I'm going to save this shape. Now I want to always keep the distance from this line or this point to this point right here, regardless of what else happens to this cabinet, the shape of it, I always want that distance to remain. So what I would do would be to put an ortho constraint. So click the first point, click the next point, and then again it asks me, do I want a specific value or do I want some type of text? The value is fine, so I have those 2 points constrained so that distance will always remain the same. The length constraint's very simple. I just click on one end and then I go to the other end and I set the value that I want this line to be, and this line, no matter what else or no matter how I shape this cabinet, this line is always going to remain 30 inches. The radius constraint, let me put an arc by radius out here. That should be fine. If I then come to the radius, I'm going to select the object. I'm going to select the point I want it radius to, or the constraint, and now I have constrained this to a radius of 6.5. So it's always going to remain there. And the final one is an angle. Let me do this. Let me draw a couple of lines. If I want an angle constraint now, I click there, click the first one. I'm going to click the second one. Now I'm going to establish the angle, like I could do 45 right here. And as you can see, it stretched it out to 45. So there's always going to be a constraint on this angle, that it will always remain at 45 degrees. So the dimension constraints allow you to set specific distances that your objects or your lines or your edges will always obey that, so that regardless of what you do to the shape of the cabinet overall, those segments will always remain the same, and that can come in quite handy down the road with some specialty cabinets that you build. Okay, now let me run through the logical constraints. Fixed is very simple. If I want to put a line out here and I don't want it moving anywhere, I would go to logical, fix, and apply a fixed constraint to that. What that's going to do is that I can now select this object. If I try to move it up, it's not going anywhere. If I try to rotate it around, it's not going anywhere. It's fixed in this position, and that applies to any line that you put that constraint on. X and Y axis, let me show you do it this way. I'm going to apply the x-axis constraint to this line. So you can see the constraint indicator. I'm going to apply the y-axis to this one. And now if I were to select this and try to move it, I can move it anywhere along the x-axis. However, I cannot take it and rotate it away from that x-axis. So the position can move, but the axis rotation cannot move. Same way with the y-axis, it will not move. You can see it's going to move along the line, but it will not move from that y-axis position. Coincidence, if I have two lines that are joined together, now we have the coincident constraint set to automatically apply, so these are going to have the coincident constraint. You can see it right there. Now if I want to select that, and you can see at the top left the coincidence constraint is selected, I'm simply going to click my delete button and it deleted it. What that does is that these two lines are now are no longer joined. They are separate, so I can move this one away and the other one does not follow it. Now if I move this one back, the constraint automatically gets applied, so that when you can see the constraint is there, so that when I move one, the other one follows. And that's what coincidence does for you. And that's a very key constraint. Again, you're able to set that to apply by default, and you certainly want it to, but you do have control over it if you need to. Concentric, let me put up a couple of arcs for you. I tell you what, let me get rid of a few of these to make a little more room to work. Let me put up a couple of arcs. If I want these to always have the same concentric point, I would apply the logical concentric, so that I select the first CAD object, and now I'm going to select the second one, so that these remain parallel to each other. Once you start moving them around, they're always going to have the same radius point, and they will remain the same concentric form to each other. Parallel, if I place one line, place a second line, if I apply a parallel constraint, these will always remain parallel to each other. So if I select this one and move it around, this one follows, because they have to remain parallel to each other. Tangent, I'm really not the world's greatest expert on this, but let me put up an arc here, and then let me put a line onto that arc. Now at this point, the line and the arc are not tangent to each other, so I go to logical constraints, do a tangent, click here, and then click here, and now they will always remain tangent to each other while shaping the object. I'll be honest, I don't have a practical use for that. I'm sure someone listening to this does, and hopefully they can demonstrate this out on eSupport to give us all a little better idea of how you would use this. Perpendicular, if I put two lines together, and I always want them to remain perpendicular no matter what I do to the lines, I would tie these two guys together, click like that, there we go. And now regardless of what I do to this line, it will always remain perpendicular to this line. Like I can move it up, and as you can see, it's always going to maintain this angle, very similar to the dimension angle, but this is a logical constraint. Okay, the next one's going to be equal radius. Let me clean off a little room again. I believe I can show this one on the cabinet. What I want to do is use the fillet, so that I did a 5 radius on this edge, and on this edge I'm going to click here. I'm going to change this to 8, and now I'm going to click here, and as you can see, this is a much larger arc. If I want these to be equal, I simply select the one that I want to copy, click there, stretch it to here, and as you can see, this second one now duplicates the angle of this first one. So, and as this radius changes, this one will match it. Okay, equal length. Let me place a line here, and let me place a line here. And if I want these two lines to always be the same length, regardless of the other ways that I may be shaping the cabinet, I can apply an equal length constraint, and as you can see, it stretched it out so that these two will match lengths all the time. And that's the end of the constraints. Again, you always want to, before you try to save an object that you've been editing, you want to check to make sure that you get a green. In this case, I've been playing with this one. It's really messed up and it's not going to save. The set start, this applies if you have created a route operation and you are able to set which direction it starts in. And if you need more help, you can go into the help files for this. All of these are explained in the help files. I hope I've given you a good explanation of them. I know it's a little bit simplified, but as long as you understand the principle of what you're looking at, then you can apply these to your real life situations as you are designing your cabinets. So this is going to finish up with segment 2, and now we're going to start looking at a few more shapes. Okay, now let's pick back up with segment number 3. I was going to show you a few more examples of cabinet shaping. One that is very common that we hear a lot about is I put in a 90-degree corner cabinet. Well, I need this side to stay 24 deep, but I need this one to be 18 deep all the time, even though I may stretch the cabinet around. So if we edit the shape, let's look at it for just a moment. You can see I have some coincident constraints. I also have a y-axis constraint. If you'll notice, we have some constraints. These are actually, I think of them as the old locking points that are going to lock it in a single direction or not. If we were to change this line to 18, that would not change this area right here. It would just simply be changing this one edge. What we actually want to happen is that we want this segment to be moved back to 18. That way, when it's stretched, this segment right here will always remain accurate. So let's look at the parameters and see what we need to change. We see that the X starts at 24 and ends at 36. That means the X is running horizontal for us. If we look at the Y, we start at 24 and we end at 24, which means that's the vertical. So that's what we're going to change for both of these. We're going to change 18 at the start, and we're going to change the ending 18. Now again, because these have the coincident constraint, this line adjusts to it. So what we've done is, because they're locked with the points, we have taken this area and made it 18 inches. So let's save this shape and let's verify that we're accurate. In width, let's change this to 42, and the moment of truth, let's change this to 42, and you see that we kept our 18 inches right here. And we can prove that by going to edit shape, clicking there, and you see we have a length of 18. If we click here, we have a start, our Y position starts and stops at 18. So at this point, we could save this cabinet back into the catalog and use it for all corner situations. And that's just one example, but I hope that gives you some ideas about how to shape things. Another shape that is quite common is an upper cabinet that needs to sit next to a window so that you have a clip on one end. Now this is very similar to what I did in the earlier portion of this training movie, but I want to want to reinforce this idea. This comes in handy a lot. So I need, let's say I need 8 inches clip on the front, because I have this sitting next to a window. My window, I'm going to say, is on the left, so I want to make a little extra door there. So I'm going to click on line. I'm coming here, and again my snap point is on, so it clicks right to that line. You can see at the top left my starting X. As I go left to right, I'm going to click the tab button, make that 8, because I know that's how far I want to go. Alright, now I left click here and I take it into the corner and it snaps to that point, and I left click again. At this point we're going to delete these lines that we no longer need. I'm going to check to make sure that we are completely closed. The green lets us know we are, and click return, and we have saved it. And now let's go to the section editor. This needs to be a face, that's correct. This is an end, back, and this needs to be a face also. So what I want to do is right here I want to make a door for this face, and here I'm going to make a pear door. And then if we go into 3D, as you can see, that's a neat little cabinet that you would put next to a window. One thing I would also do is come here, and on the interior I would put a partition. Let's move it to the left. There we go. So now let me take it back to wire mode. You can see I have a partition in there, and if I open this door up, we'll see nothing but the partition. And what that partition allows us to do is come here and put an adjustable shelf in there, but still get our line boring on both sides. So we can have a shelf in this side, and then this can be just you can put shelving in here. This will be a little knick-knack area or spice area, whatever you want it to be. But again, that gives you an example of how you can very easily shape the cabinets like you need them to. There's one more that I'm going to show you. Goes kind of along the lines with the 90-degree. We had this. I had this come up the other day, so I'm going to show you real quickly. I think a lot of you know what I'm doing here already. I'm going to make this 15 in the middle. This is a very common construction for those that build their cabinets like this. You just build. What I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these cabinets into a single one. Now what I want to happen is that I know that I happen to use a either a vent hood or a combination microwave vent that's always 15 inches. So I don't want to have to redo this cabinet every single time, but I always need the 15-inch clearance here. So let's go into the shape editor, and this time I'm going to use a distance constraint, and I'm going to do one end to the other, and I want that to be 15, so that's good. Let's do this again on this side. There we go. Well, I'm having a hard time clicking there. I found it. Okay. And there's 15 on that side. So we have these two that are constrained. And in this situation, this is should work for us. Let me back it out and let me click the cabinet. It's 30 inches high. So let me make that 42. And it's going to stretch down because we are up against the soffit, which is correct. But as you can see, we still maintain the 15 inches right there. If I edit shape, click here, you can see that we have the 15 inches. So at this point, I would save this cabinet back into the catalog for future use. Well, I've gone way beyond my time limit for today, but I hope you got a lot out of this. The Advanced Shape Editor is extremely powerful. You can do practically any shape that you want to. Just one thing that I want you to keep in mind is that Not every shape that you construct has matching questions in the construction method or the assembly wizard. Therefore, if you don't get it exactly built the way you're looking for, you may have to manually adjust some parts in or out, or adjust the sizes, simply because the matching questions do not exist in the assembly wizard, which is the first thing Solid looks to. You may also have a need for some custom UCSs for some of the cabinets that you do. That is available also to help you with your shaping. This completes today's training movie. I would like to remind you of your training options. The help files are available within each Cabinet Vision product. The eSupport technical website is a great resource for questions and answers and features a technician monitored forum. Regional training classes are available, so please contact your customer service representative for the classes in your area. If you would like someone to come on-site to your location and train your team, this can be arranged. Online training is a very convenient method for training over the internet. The e-learning training series is a series of topics which you can purchase online and download for immediate use. If you have questions about this or anything else, please go to our website, cabinetvision.com. We look forward to you joining us next time. Thank you for watching.